Welcome to Feed My Sheep Radio. I'm Chuck Clement, the host, with Dr. Jim Davis, the voice of Feed My Sheep. This afternoon's topic from Dr. Jim is remembering a parable during Lent. Dr. Jim.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
And you.
During Lent, we are heading toward Jerusalem, where the cross and Easter happen. And we remember various parables of Jesus. As you know, the Jewish father was the spiritual leader with the Jewish family. And in that priestly role, he led them to observances. A man that did not provide adequately for his family was guilty of a serious offense. The Talmud says that a father had 4 responsibilities toward his son. Besides teaching him the 10 commandments, he must circumcise his son, Genesis 17, 12 through 13, redeem him from God if he were the firstborn, Numbers 18, 15 through 16, find him a wife, Genesis 24, 4, and teach him a trade. After the death of the father, these responsibilities fell on the firstborn son, who would receive a double portion of the family inheritance. Deuteronomy 21, 17 and 2 Chronicles 21, 23 tell you that. This is illustrated with Jesus when a younger son wanted Jesus to tell his older brother to divide up the family portions, which was up to the timing of the firstborn son. So, in the parable that is being told, the people listening in their culture had these insights and biblical expectations. Listen with new ears as the young son is claiming that the father is dead and the rights of the firstborn son are to be trespassed against. Luke 15, verses 11 through 32. New American Standard Bible, 1995. Quote, and he said, a man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate that falls to me. So he divided his wealth between them. Let's stop there a second and let me interpret the parable here. And imagine with me that the Jewish people listening are considering the father of this story with disdain. Weird. He's out of his mind. Back to the text. 13 verse. And not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together and went on a journey into a distant country. And there he squandered his estate with loose living. Now, when he had spent everything, a severe famine occurred in that country, and he began to be impoverished. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of the country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would have gladly filled his stomach with the pods that the swine were eating, and no one was giving anything to him. But when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread, but I am dying here with hunger? I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired men. So he got up and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion for him and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, Quickly bring out the best robe and put it on him. I interrupt the text again. Does this remind you of Joseph's coat of many colors? Now back to the text. And put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fattened calf, kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found. And they began to celebrate. Let me interrupt again, saying the original hearers might be thinking, since the father gave up everything to his two sons, whose robe, whose ring was it? Whose fatted calf was it? Back to the text. Now, his older son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, that is the firstborn's house, again, that's my insert, he heard music and dancing, and he summoned one of the servants and began inquiring what these things could be. And he said to him, your brother's come, and your father's killed the fattened calf because he's received him back safe and sound. But he became angry and was not willing to go in. And his father came out and began pleading with him. But he answered and said to his father, look, for so many years I've been serving you, and I never neglected a command of yours, and yet you never given me a young goat so that I may celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your wealth with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, son, you've always been with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, for this brother of yours was dead and has begun to live, and was lost and has been found. Here ends the parable. From the firstborn son, we have the response to the father that you are alive and have been all along, compared to the prodigal son who needed his father dead to get his share prematurely. Did the father's love for his second son overcome him so that he broke the rule of biblical culture that those listeners were living by? What caused the younger son and the father to trespass against the firstborn son? One might ask, who's happy and why? What is the prodigal's role next in his older brother's domain? The father and son are both alive to each other. Celebrate. Everything of the home and property belongs to the firstborn, who valued his father as alive. Many who tell the story of the prodigal son stop with verse 24, but Jesus didn't, nor should we. How is the prodigal son prodigal to the first son? Is the father asking forgiveness of the older son at the end? The father is alive to be both the sons again. I'm sorry, I should repeat that. I messed up. The father is alive to both sons again. The prodigal son is back, and the older brother's robe and ring. How do you read the parable now? What is Jesus' message for you to live?
So, Dr. Jim, what we typically do is stop with the second son's reaction.
Yep.
So, Jesus says you can't stop there.
That's right.
But what's his message?
Well, his message is family. And his message is that the father does recognize he's trespassed against the older brother, the firstborn son. And he did that because of his admiration for his younger son and helping him break two laws in order to do it. It's interesting to me that Protestant ministers that I have heard and listened to diligently have almost always stopped early because they have a story they want to say about the prodigal that is not Jesus' story at all. You can bend many parables by yanking them around and short circuiting them. But Jesus was speaking to those people then, and he was affirming the law and the tradition. And he was showing that the Father, after he was again alive to the younger son, and the younger son was alive, was ready to position himself and his whole family and the younger son under the control of the firstborn because he had made that decision. And people who were walking away thinking, well, that old man really messed up. He shouldn't have done that.
So is he unwinding his previous decision? I mean, the oldest son made the decision. Father, the father went along with him and divided it up.
The younger son went
Yeah.
along. Yeah. And he asked the father to do that. And in asking the father to do that, the father was trespassing against the guides in Deuteronomy and Numbers and several other points in the Old Testament about who gets to decide about the property. All of the property should go to the firstborn son, and then he decides when it's to be divided. It is very interesting.
So let's apply that to us during Lent.
All right. The application to Lent is that what we do is we jump ahead of the suffering of Jesus. Oh, yeah, he's on the cross, but we really focus in on Easter. We had Palm Sunday, and here he is coming down the mountain, but the suffering and the trespassing of the story of the power of the cross and the suffering, and the way he was scourged, as he couldn't even carry his crossbeam, the pain, suffering, being offered vinegar when he's thirsting, all of that pain and sorrow is skipped right past, and you go right to Easter. A lot of churches don't even have Maundy, Thursday services and don't have Good Friday services. They just skip from Palm Sunday to Easter, and so do many people. It is interesting to me. On Palm Sunday, there was a sharing about. I listened to a sharing about the washing of feet and the suggestion that you should wash somebody's feet as a gesture of humility. And that is great. But the idea that Jesus was the servant role when they come in, and when a person came into the room of the upper room, their feet were washed by a servant. Then they washed their left hand and ate appetizers with that. Then they washed both hands before they laid down with their sandals off and their feet extended. That's when Jesus washed feet. He washed feet when they were clean. So that's what Peter's questioning him about. It's a spiritual foot washing, not a mechanical foot washing. Their feet had already been clean. And the person telling the story didn't know that.
So the rest of the story
is that the father knows that he's trespassed against the son, and he's trying to make the son accept his ask for forgiveness, because everything that the father has is really the older brother's. And he shouldn't have given the robe to that son who was prodigal, or the ring to that son who was prodigal, because those were the firstborn son.
But that's the cultural.
That's right. And the point of it is the man broke with what the culture was to give his second son a special treatment.
And a second chance.
Yes, the second chance then comes to in that he's alive. The father's alive and the son is alive. Now what happens? It's the first son's world. Is he going to be welcome in the family? What's the first son going to do? He's going to, it looks like since Jesus leaves it there, it looks like in the story that the father has really affirmed that everything is the first son's property. And so it's like, would you let us be here with you?
He just reset it back to culture.
That's right. Everybody who's there knows that this story trespasses against their story by what the father does and what the younger son does. The only one that's kept faith in the story is the firstborn. The women would have been going crazy. The servants would have been going crazy. This is all wrong. The old man's lost his mind.
Let's lay this at the cross.
Yes.
So I don't disagree with you. We like to see the sunrise, but we forget what happened before the sunrise.
That's right. And it goes back to the issue of being alive again.
So Jesus is alive again.
That's right. What was dead is now alive.
So was this parable, as it's articulated by Jesus, a foreshadowing of the cross?
I don't know that. I can't anticipate what Jesus said, or I mean, in terms of timeline, how he had it in the flow. It's in Luke, in the 15th chapter, but the I don't know that flow. I can't answer that question.
But we do know that Jesus was probably the biggest rule breaker in the Bible.
On occasion, show me a rule that he breaks. It's usually a verbal break. He doesn't break any of the 10 commandments. What he does is he
cultural rules. I'm talking about.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
They built that elaborate. Can't pick grain as you're walking through the field on Sunday. Well, that's not in the 10 Commandments. So it's all these other little 617 or so, 614 in that category, depending on the text. But those are the rules that he challenged.
Then he challenged the biggest rule was being raised from the dead. I mean,
that's right. That's right. And in the foot washing, see, he's challenging the rule that only servants do your feet. No, I'm doing your feet spiritually. I know they're already clean, but I'm showing you my humble relationship to you in terms of being spiritual servant to you.
So this connects with a couple of, or a number of previous podcasts, and we culturally like to define Jesus's words and actions through our cultural lens rather than the spiritual lens.
Absolutely. do that all the time. And that is such a disservice to Jesus and to the listeners. We need to tell the story so that the listener can see themselves in the role of a mother who's on the side and not in all of this decision making, being a prodigal son, being a father who has a son who's lost his way, being a son who's been faithful all the time and not really treated with respect. It's all those characters are already in the mix of life.
The theme over the last 3 or 4 weeks has been making sure we have clarity when we reach the cross.
That's right. As we look at ourselves and we confess our sins, we look deeper into us for possible points that we need to shape up and ask forgiveness for as we come before the cross.
So we could be the father, we could be the oldest son, or we could be the youngest son.
Absolutely. Or you could be one of the servants, or you could be one of the women. Think of the mother of those sons. What's she thinking about? She knows what her husband did. She knows her husband trespassed against the first son by giving the second son his treasure. She knows that he reduced the farm before he died, and it wasn't his choice to do. She knows all of this, and it affected her livelihood too. You know who else knew it? The rabbi, the local rabbi. Now, when you have 10 married men, you had to have a synagogue and a rabbi. And Jesus doesn't get into that, but let's just say that there is no rabbi involved. All the people who are there, servants, slaves, everybody, other family members, distant family members, the women of the household, all of them knew what was happening. And they lived with it. They lived with it while the younger son went out and gallivanted around. They heard the stories about him. Oh my, look at what he's doing. And they were blaming the father. But the oldest son understood that his father was alive and he was obeying him.
Obedience. We didn't need to be cultural.
That's right.
Your message is challenging.
The parable is challenging, not me. This is God. This is God's son saying this, and he paints that story that shows what happens when you break with the covenant and the biblical purposes of care and family culture.
But Jesus is there to pick up the pieces.
That's right. And it is because he is alive. And that's what the son and the father did, is they agreed that each other was alive. And the older brother knew that the father was alive all along.
Thank you, Dr. Jim.
Thank you. It's Holy Week.
It is Holy Week, and I'm thankful that we're focused on gaining clarity as we get closer to the cross.
Absolutely. We do that because we are alive and he lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.